off. There are contemporary theories of leadership that are extremely important. And perhaps this is like one of my favorite theories of leadership proposed by Baz, Avolio, and a lot of people who have studied leadership actually suggest these two major forms of leadership or styles of leadership that are prevalent in the industry. One type of leadership is called a transactional leader, and the other type of leader is called as transformational leader. Now, these are very simple, theories, but they actually have far-reaching impact in an organizational context. If you look at transactional leaders depend on contingent reward, meaning which they actually get work done, and for good work that is done, they actually promise rewards, and they also do recognize and reward accomplishments. That's transactional because you do good work. Here am I as a leader. I'll reward you. I'll recognize your effort. So this is pretty much transactional. Management by exception, active. Such a leader actually watches for what you're doing at the workplace, and if he finds that you have certain deviations from rules and standards, they definitely do initiate some kind of corrective action. They'll tell you this is not the way it should be done, because this is management by exception active. They're looking for any deviation from the standards that they're expecting. And such a leader, she will definitely then ask you to change the way you're approaching work. Management by exception passive, intervention by the leader, she is not going to be able to intervene. Only if she does that, only whenever the standards are not met, not in anticipation that you're having a deviation, but only when the standards are not met. And that's why this is called passive. And it's passive in the sense they wait for you to complete the task. And if the standards are not met, there is a problem with quality or the kind of standards they're expecting from the output itself. That is when they will intervene, and she'll tell you perhaps this is what you should be doing. And then the last characteristic of a transactional leader here, it's the fourth one here, is laissez-faire. So such a leader actually does not proactively give you any kind of direction, does not help or facilitate in taking decisions, does not help the team or lead the team in trying to achieve a particular task. Rather, laissez-faire is letting everybody shoulder that responsibility of being a leader. So it's in simple terms, they abdicate responsibilities, they avoid making decisions. Most often they postpone making decisions. Not the perfect type of leadership, but sometimes it might be helpful. So you never know when you want to be transactional, especially when you have to deal with people who are looking for rewards, who want to be recognized, who want to be appreciated for their accomplishments, and who need to be watched over if they are doing the right thing or if there is a possibility of a deviation. I think such people can be led very well effectively by being a transactional leader. But personally, I would think I would prefer a transformational leader who's willing to create that kind of idealized influence. They provide a vision and a sense of mission. They instill pride and gain respect and trust. So obviously they are, role models for you to follow. And that's why they have this idealized influence. They also, offer inspirational motivation. And that means they're extremely good at communicating. They can actually mobilize action, and they can inspire you to do certain things. And that's why transformational leaders are extremely charismatic as well. Then the third point here under transformational leadership is intellectual stimulation. They're willing to take that extra bit of risk, and they're happy to let you think outside the box. They'll let you do things in your way because they trust you, and they can empower you to do things in your own way and experiment. They're fine taking that element of risk, and they will support you because you're trying something new. And that's why this is one characteristic that is pretty transformational. And transformational leaders have a big role to play in how organizations keep that culture of innovation. Whenever you have a company that have transformational leadership, you give yourself a better chance of being an innovative company. You're always wanting to experiment. You want to do one better than your competitors. All that is possible because these leaders, they're intelligent, they are rational, they're very smart with their problem solving, and they support their own employees and team members in experimenting and innovating and thinking outside the box. And the last thing that makes transformational leaders so good is individualized consideration. They treat every individual separately, uh, giving you the kind of space and respect that you deserve. So that personal attention makes you feel important, obviously. And they treat each employee individually. Coach, they act as coaches, they act as mentors, and that means you get an opportunity to interact with your leader, learn by personal observation, and learn from their experience as well. So they are willing to spend that extra bit of time because they are happy working with individuals and with teams as well, and that's why they have this ability to spend time, invest time on individuals and give them the consideration that they're looking for. So personally, I would think transformational leaders work with creating a very strong culture within the company because they're pretty transformational. They lay a strong foundation for innovation, they lay a strong foundation for experimentation. They're also very inspirational because they themselves are role models, and they have a huge vision, and they know how to communicate and get everybody involved in that new vision for the organization itself. And that's what transformational leaders do, whereas transactional leaders are more focused in creating the climate conducive for work, productivity, output driven, and look at the standards and try and get compliance as much as possible to those standards. And if you accomplish something, and if you fulfill those goals, they promise you, attractive rewards. They give you enough recognition. That those kind of leaders are called transactional, but transformational leaders are willing to go and be role models, inspire a vision, inspire action from you. They can motivate you. They themselves are charismatic by the way they lead the team members, and they give you that personal care. So any questions on the two types of leadership? This I think is a great framework when we are discussing leadership, and these two styles are pretty relevant in the industry as well. If you have questions, if you think you want to contribute towards this slide, if you have had good fortune of working with somebody you thought is pretty transformational, you might want to share. Yeah,
Is
Chris.
there an example of a leader that is both types of leader, transactional and transformational?
Yeah, you can be transactional, you can be transformational, depending on what you're doing and what you're planning to accomplish. And perhaps in different contexts you might be transactional versus in other situations you might have a transformational approach. That's possible. But the transformational leaders are so positive, and they're so innovation driven. They're pretty much charismatic as well. I would think it would be very difficult for them simply to be transactional. They would lean towards being more transformational, and you can sense that from the way they lead. So while the answer is yes, it could still be a no. That's how I look at it. I can see somebody who's so transformational be transactional more times. It's going to be very difficult for a transformational leader to be transactional, and even the opposite. A transactional leader might put in that extra bit of effort. She might want to be transformational, but the mindset of being transactional might pull you back into being transactional, might stop you from truly becoming transformational, unless you're willing to change, and unless you build that charisma around yourself, the credentials that you can be a role model, and that you can inspire action, you can motivate people, and then you can create a vision that everybody is willing to be part of. And then you have that time to invest in people and coach them and mentor them. So that transition is not that easy, and both are difficult for the other. That's what I think. What's your take, Chris?
What I would say is that it seems like I've found examples of both of these types of leaders in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see that, well, people would lead, and I seem to remember there were a few people that were transactional
Hmm.
at first, and then as I got to know them more and work for them longer, they sort of were more transformational.
Yeah, I
I
think
guess as
probably.
they had more trust to like let me do as I needed to do.
Yeah, I get to understand from where you're coming. I got it. As long as you were part of the out group, they chose to be perhaps transactional. And then when they, got to trust you more and they've seen you work, you become part of the in group, then you see the transformational side of them. Yeah, I like that perspective. You have another view of it, which is perhaps true because anything to deal with people, leadership is all about people. And in OB, we are talking about people. So, as much as my view might be correct, your view is absolutely spot on. And I'm happy you shared that kind of experience and how you saw somebody being transactional to begin with, and then they become transformational once you earn their trust and respect. Yeah. Anybody else who wants to contribute on that slide? See, I actually would generally finish one chapter in one class. Leadership, I thought, deserves two classes because I'm a big fan of what even Arbor actually pointed out in the last class, saying we don't have too many good leaders. So I think we spending an extra bit of time on how you can be a good leader and how the world needs good leaders, whether it's at an organizational level, whether it's a country level, community level, whether it's at home, in your neighborhood. I think good leaders are required everywhere. Leaders who are responsible, who can put the group ahead of them, who can be selfless, who carry a certain set of values they espouse, and they're willing to work for those values and contribute to the betterment of a larger community. I think those kind of leaders we all need, and the more the better. It's not like, oh, we have enough, so there's no space for me to be a leader. No, we all are good leaders. We can cultivate ourselves to being good leaders, effective leaders, and successful leaders. And as Chris was saying, this is a journey. Our behavior tells us that personalities keep changing, our perceptions keep changing, our motives keep changing, our abilities to be a good team member change, and our ability to be a great leader will emerge. You can discover the leader in you, and we need more good leaders. So that's why I'm spending a lot of time here. So please feel free to participate, share your experiences, because we learn from each other. That's my honest belief. Now, how do transformational, that's why you have a little bit more on transformational leadership. How does it work? Now, it's actually because it appreciates creativity from their own side as being transformational. They're very smart people. They can think outside the box. And then even while they do it, it's not like they do whatever comes to their mind. They have a structure to it. They still have a process. They have criteria. So they're still having things that ensure fair, equitable ways of dealing with people. Their decisions are inclusive in that nature. So they're creative, they're smart, they think outside the box, but then they can create a process. They can create a structure that is equitable, that's fair. Decentralization of responsibilities. You heard Chris just now talk about how he won the respect and trust of his leader, and then he saw that the leader was not just being transactional, but was more transformational. And I'm sure Chris will also agree. Maybe he got more responsibilities and he got more authority, so that decentralization is more because they're transformational. They're not like, oh, I have to make all the decisions. Transformational leaders are not the ones who are going to say, it's all about me. What I think is, it has to be the perfect thing. I'm not going to take anybody's opinion. They're not like that. They would say, each of us is important, but I'm here ready to take the responsibility of the collective whole. But I'm willing to actually share that responsibility and give you the authority to try your own thing and be innovative, bring your unique skills to the table. That's what makes transformational leaders so special. Propensity to take risks. That's what they always do. They're very innovative as much as they are engaging, they engage all the stakeholders, they're very innovative. They see opportunities where possibly most people cannot see an opportunity. Even during a hard, difficult period, tough phase of business, they're seeing opportunities, how this can be used in favor of the organization, in favor of the team, and how can we convert these challenges into opportunities. And that happens because they're willing to take that extra bit of risk. Compensation is geared towards long-term results. It's not just like transactional. You do this, you get this. That's being just transactional. But compensation is about learning, about growth opportunities, about self-development, career development, development of your personalities, development of a skill set, acquiring new competences. So the perspective of compensation is not just confined to short-term incentives, bonuses, rewards, but the perspective of compensation is long-term growth, learning opportunities, that kind of perspective, because it's more transformational. Suppose you are being given extra responsibilities, even if that did not mean that it translated into monetary value, by doing these extra responsibilities, you've become a better professional, you've got greater experience now. You can add those bullet points on your resume, and it makes you more valuable as an individual. So the way transformational leaders look at employees as not being a liability, not just being, people of, it's not just the two hands that because you're working, you need to be compensated, but you are a person as a whole person. You're bringing unique talents. You're very special to us. You're an asset to the organization. And because you're unique, you contribute in creative and innovative ways. So that's how transformational leaders would think. Greater agreement among top managers about the organizational goals, because they're transformational. They get participation of people. They get engagement of every individual in the organization. And that means there is greater, buy-in for whatever decisions are being taken towards achieving something. So there's more commitment towards the goals, because it's not about my goal that I want to thrust upon you just because I think it's good for us, but it's because we think these are supposed to be our goals, both strategic goals, financial goals. It could be long-term goals versus short-term goals. All the SMART goals that we have: specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, relevant, and time-driven. All these things have the buy-in and the commitment. And therefore, employees are that much more engaged towards achieving those goals. And that's what makes transformational leadership something so exciting. And that is what we want to work for. And I think each of us is capable of being a transformational leader in our own rights. Any thoughts about what I just explained today? I'll keep asking the same questions every slide because I want you to talk and think about it. It could be at your personal level, family level, your previous job, your current job, or things that you are leading right now in terms of, say, charity, in terms of any kind of organization that you are working with, whether it's your own or it belongs to someone else. How can you bring that kind of transformational effect to what you do? And that's what we are supposed to be doing. We should make some kind of change and transformation to people whom we are engaged with around us, right? So think about it as I speak, because it helps you discover who you are. It's not for me to tell you, oh, this is you. Or maybe we just don't have the time and then the chance to interact so much to discover that person by taking someone's help. It's for you to discover who you are. And I think that's best done if you can reflect and ruminate about what is discussed in class.
Professor, on that note,
Mhm.
in terms of leaders, actually, I would say that the people who demand respect and they're not afraid to take risks, as you mentioned before, like those are the people who usually left an impact in my life, I would say, in schools and, growing up. The ones that th- they were disagreeable in a way, but they still demanded respect. They were the ones that made you think from like a different perspective, I would say. They had very different opinions sometimes, but they made it work in their own way, and it made you want to learn more.
Yeah, thanks, Arbor, for sharing that, because they challenge you to think differently, not just because they want to impose themselves, but they say there are other ways of doing something. And that's how they're actually, giving you an opportunity to think beyond your general ways of thinking, your usual conditioned ways of thinking. They're challenging those neural networks that you have in your mind, and because they don't agree with everything, they are thinking differently. They make you think in divergent ways. That's the purpose of transformational leaders. They've changed you, or your perspective, your paradigm has shifted. And thanks to them, because in schools, in colleges that we attend, in communities that we work, and the people that we observe as we grow up as individuals, these are all the great people that are creating that kind of impact. And if you find such a leader, I think there's no harm in trying to interact with somebody like that for at least a given point of time, so that you begin to, learn from them as much as you can. And it's always nice to, continue to learn from them. And then you have another form of leadership that we are going to discuss in today's class, which is authentic leadership. Now, as I was just explaining to you just now, authentic leaders clearly know who they are, and that means they're clear about the values that they have and they share, and they will live with that kind of values. They're authentic because you can trust them. When they say something, you know that they actually mean it. They will live what they say, and that's the reason why they're authentic. It could be a bunch of values that they espouse, and they will live by that. And authentic leaders know that they believe in and value. They actually know what they believe in and what they value. And they will act on those values and beliefs. Now, it's not that easy when you, as an individual, are working in an organization to continue to stick to those set of values. Say, some values which I just explained in today's class are being fair and equitable. Sometimes you might deal with an employee who is very difficult to deal with. They are not the best employees in terms, they are not affable. They do not socialize that easily. They're not friendly. They perhaps border on being very rude. But even if they're rude, or even if they're tough to deal with, you as a leader, because you're authentic, you still will have the same kind of concern. You will give them a fair chance of being heard, so that you understand their perspective. They might be difficult to handle, but you are fair and you're equitable. You follow procedures. You follow a certain set of criteria. And that's what makes you authentic. It's not that I prefer some people, I like some people, and I'm good with them, and the difficult ones, I turn my head away from them. Those are not authentic leaders. Those are leaders who shy away from their responsibility. They are not leaders at all. But authentic leaders are those who will stick to those values, irrespective of the kind of people they're dealing with, irrespective of what happened before, because they are authentic. Their values do not change. Anything that changes every day is not showing consistency, is not showing something that you can trust on. It doesn't show a strong belief that a person tries to exhibit. So authentic leaders are those who have a set of values. It could be being fair, being equitable, being honest, showing some sense of integrity, respect and dignity for individuals, appreciating diversity, trying to encourage inclusiveness. All these set of things are wonderful values that we want our societies to be, actually adhering to. That's what authentic leaders bring to the table. And this in the process creates a climate of being ethical. That's why you see on the header of this slide, role of leaders in creating ethical organizations. Most people think that ethics have no place in business. I would differ completely from that. Ethical organizations last much longer because they build that goodwill among societies, among all the stakeholders, including customers, suppliers, internal employees, and every other stakeholder, including government agencies that we have to deal with. All these stakeholders would want to interact and do business with an organization that they can trust. So the more ethical the organization is, because thanks to the authentic leaders that we have, the greater is the chance that the organization will survive all these ups and downs that are created by the external situations, which are most of the times not controllable by organizations. Extraneous factors, macro environmental factors, are something that you cannot avoid. Every organization is getting affected, say, by the pandemic. So what else can you do? Can you choose to be unethical? just because you want to survive. No, you can still be ethical, evidence and demonstrate to the world at large and to all your stakeholders that even if in difficult times, you choose to be an ethical organization. And that's only possible because you have authentic leaders at the top. So ethical leadership, I just said that they think about the larger good. They are very charismatic. They combine ethical and charismatic leadership. And the idea of socialized charismatic leadership, whatever they bring to the table is for the common good. They think about the utility that they create to all their stakeholders, their customers, the societies that they operate in. And that's why they are, they are valued in the world, and your organization depends on such people who are ethical in that sense. And I would strongly urge you to think about ethical ways of doing things when you do your own business. You're young people, you're going to work with different companies, you will have your own startup organizations. There's no shortcut to success. If you actually compromise on ethics and values, you might succeed in the short term, but things will be out. People are smart enough to realize that your organization and the way it operates and the way you do business is not based on strong foundations of ethics. So authentic leaders, ethical leadership, I think these are all important things to show that you're socially responsible. Corporate social responsibility is a big thing. It's just not a fashionable term. It's not that you need to invest some money here, do some charity there to build that kind of goodwill. No, it doesn't happen that way. It happens in everyday activities as well. Not what you show to the world, what you advertise to the world, but by how you treat your employees every day, how you actually service your customers every day. Ethics and values are there in everything that we do. They will figure that out. If I'm insincere, you will find that. If I'm not prepared for my class and if I don't teach well, I think the first people that can spot it, even before I begin to realize it, are my students. They'll tell me, Professor, you don't look at your best today. There's something wrong. Aren't you that prepared? Are you feeling sick or something is bothering you? You will sense that. And if you can do that in a class, it's about transactions which involve money, which involve psychological investment. And you have several stakeholders, including agencies, that protect the environment, that care for the planet, government, which looks for compliance, suppliers who actually want business from you, customers who do business from you, and you want to retain happy, satisfied, and returning customers. So all these bunch of people, the stakeholders that we call in business terms, they want to look up to you because they can trust you. They want to come back to you because they know that you're ethical. You have strong foundations which you will not compromise on. So I can't tell you how important ethics is, whether it's in accounting, whether it's in finance, areas like marketing. And when we promise to do something, are we sticking to those promises? Do we deliver on efficiencies, durability, on performance of the product? And after sales service, are we prompt enough? Do we care for our customers? Do we care for our internal employees? And that's evident every single day. You are responsible. That's what it shows. And you are socially responsible, not just responsible to those whom you do business with, but to the planet at large, to the communities at large, to the neighborhood in which you operate. So ethical organizations are those organizations that will last. These ups and downs and the roller coaster rides that you have because of things that are happening in a turbulent environment. Then servant leadership. I think, it's important that you realize those who serve all, they have a best chance of leading everyone. I would think, when I was in Abu Dhabi campus, it's a personal experience. Don't blame me for saying too many things about Abu Dhabi. That's why I lived 7 years. I was assistant dean there. I used to always joke, I would prefer being assistant dean rather than being dean because I love the word assistant. You're trying to assist everybody. When they got me that position of assistant dean, I did not suddenly think I have the power. I thought I'm an assistant. It's a very important job. I'll assist my students. I'll assist my faculty. I'll assist my staff. I will assist the community that I work with, the industry partners. I love the word assistant somehow. Said, wow, this is reminding me that I should not think I'm the boss. I'm just an assistant. And I really appreciated When I assisted people and when they grew and then when they, flourished, and when I saw my students succeed, I just enjoyed it. I celebrated their success. Every time I resolved a little problem, which I thought was a small one, but for my stakeholder, for my student, it's a big one. I felt supremely happy. And the best results that I had because of what my approach was during the graduation, when we were, every year when we have the graduation, we had families of students come in. I've never seen them. And they would come and say, Dr. Gantasala, my kid, my son talks about you. We just, have heard so many good things about you. They would say, oh, my daughter keeps talking of how good you are being, how helpful you have been at the campus. I've never seen them. They didn't have to come and say such nice things to me. It's their son or daughter's, day. It's a special day for their daughter and their son and for their family. It's not really required for them to come up to me and say that kind word, but they all did that. So graduation day was as exciting for me as much as it was for my students and their families. I just miss that. To be honest, if you ask me what is that I miss most, I miss those graduation days. You get to see families, you get to see their happiness. What more can be more fulfilling than be part of that happiness, to celebrate their success, to see the joy in so many people's faces? It's just so fulfilling. So I miss what do I miss most is that that we bump in those walkways in the campus and we talk about everything. We don't have to simply talk about leadership theories. We could talk about your troubles, your learning experiences, things that have changed you, things that have motivated you. I could talk about my experiences, what I'd like about certain things that I've seen in my life, what difficulties made me a better human being. All that's possible when we bump into each other outside of the classroom and we have a chance to interact. Those things I miss. And the second thing I miss really, really is the graduation day. So I just want to tell you, thinking that you are somebody who is willing to listen, who empathizes with others, who likes to, mentor and guide people and understand their difficulties and slowly, support your fellow, team members towards their goals, make them believe in themselves and their capacities and their competences. And that's such a fulfilling thing. I'll tell you on a personal front, I know several people in other countries, in India especially, whom I've never met. And I talk to them frequently in support of their careers, in support of their education. And if they have issues, if they're having a panic attack because of exams, or if they're not having enough family support, I talk to several people I've never met in life. When I say several, easily 10 to 15 people on a daily basis. And because I think I'm a servant of all. So I'm a big fan of this form of leadership where there's no self-interest. There is that interest for everybody to be good, and we want to work in favor of everybody's success. And that requires you to be a very patient listener, an active listener. It's not just about me talking, it's about listening to the pain, listening to their difficulties, understanding, accepting, and being aware. All the three things are important. Understand their problems, accept their perspective, and be aware of their pain. And all these three things put together, that's what we call as empathy. And then when you actually feel that pain, accept it, and you understand how they're feeling, you give them advice which makes them have self-belief. It's not you have solution for everything. No, servant leaders are not supposed to have solutions for everyone, but they'll give you that sense of self-belief that you can solve it, that you are good enough, that you are capable. All that you need to do is remind people of how great they are and how blessed and grateful they should be. And they don't have to worry because difficult times do not last forever. And that's the key. Anybody who wants to say something about servant leadership, your take on it? Nobody? Chris, anything on servant leadership?
It sounds like a pretty good trait to have, to be able to serve the people that you're leading.
Mm-hmm. Daniel, Arbor.
Um, I mean, like, servant leadership has to be, they have to be more giving than other leaders, I suppose, because other leaders can have some sort of an, arrogance or something. But I think servant leadership, they need to be more, like giving in sort of a way, caring or something. I feel that it's like a very different category of leadership than other types of leadership categories. I feel like,
Yeah, sure. Khaled,
they have to be more personal,
right.
sort of in a way. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Khaled, if you want to say something, I'm just cold calling names. I know some people talk in class. So
Yes,
others,
Professor.
yeah, if you
Yeah, I
want
have
to
no,
say
sorry, I have
something
nothing to
about,
say.
do you want to say something about servant leadership?
No, sorry, I have nothing to say, Professor.
Trend, nothing? Okay, we'll go off to the next slide. We have another thing that we can discuss is positive leadership. And this is something that Chris already talked about, trust. Now, trust is very difficult to get, and you want to make sure that you deserve the trust that you're being, given. And if somebody has that trust in you, you better live up to that trust. And to me, trust is something that's very valuable. You can lose that trust very quickly. It takes years for you to build a level of trust. And so trust and leadership go hand in hand. You want to make sure that you actually can live up to those expectations. That's the key. It's a primary attribute associated with leadership. Leaders trust people. If you cannot trust others, I think you're giving yourself very little chance of being a leader. When trust is broken, it can have serious adverse effect. That's what we all know. So, and it doesn't stop you from trusting people. I've seen good leaders, especially those who are authentic leaders, those who are charismatic, who are leaders, who are servant leaders. They do not stop trusting people. Just because they've had a bad experience with somebody, they might have had an error in judgment. They might have trusted somebody whom they shouldn't have trusted as much. That doesn't stop them from trusting, because that's an attribute of a great leader. So trust and leadership are pretty much, related. The more you trust in somebody's ability, it just makes them feel more confident, and it makes your employees, it makes your team members have this sense of self-efficacy, and that's the key. If you don't believe people, and if you don't believe in their abilities, you don't trust them enough. How is that you're getting them a fair chance of blossoming into the individuals that they're capable of? That possibility of self-actualization is possible is because people have trusted you. Your parents have trusted you, your teachers trust you, and your leaders trust you. I think so much goes on trust. You trust in yourself as much. I'll tell you a simple example. I would think even if you had the option of looking up answers in an internet resource, and because you're in remote locations and you're taking an exam, if you say, no, this is an examination, I had enough time from the professor to prepare, and the professor gave me the questions that I can expect in the midterm exam. Let me do the exam as if it's a real exam. I'm not supposed to be looking up at answers from the internet. He gave me time, I'll prepare for them. And when I write and sit and write those final exams or whichever questions that I have, I'll do it as if it's an exam. I don't have to look at something. I would do that. I wouldn't be myself because somebody's watching me. I would be myself even if no one was watching, because I know I should be authentic. I'm honest to myself before I can be honest to someone else. If I have a sense of conscience, I would say this is an exam. Let this be an exam. If I need to prepare, he has given me questions, he's given me time, let me prepare. Let me use all the available resources. But when I open the exam and log in, I'll do it as what I remember, as what I assimilated, as I as I experienced it in my life at the workplace. I will write the exam from my head. I trust in my abilities. I don't have to go back to Google or XYZ book or XYZ slides. I'm capable. I would do that. And that's how I've actually approached all my life, things that I've done. I would think there is a power above us, a cosmic force that people might call God, or a conscience, or energy that's watching us all the time. And trust is something that's, you can't describe trust. I cannot quantify trust. Trust is something that happens. So when we talk about trust and leadership, leaders trust their people, their followers, their team members. And that trust is very, very difficult to get. So you've got to have that kind of level of trust. So the nature of trust is this: leader trustworthiness, integrity, benevolence, ability. Now, you heard Daniel say leaders must be more giving. That's what is benevolence. That willingness to give, that willingness to forgive. I think leaders have that upper hand. If you don't have much, you're very unforgiving. But if you have a lot, you're very forgiving. Benevolence doesn't come to people with, being narrow-minded. They're broad. They're willing to accommodate. They're willing to forgive. They're willing to give a second chance. And that's how they win the trust of people. Integrity, benevolence, and ability. You don't undermine ability. If I'm not capable, why would you trust me? How can you trust me as being a co-worker? How can you trust me as being your leader if I'm not capable? So I think the key is to show evidence and demonstrate what you are capable, not by talking, but by doing, by creating the impact. Leaders lead because they are able to deliver. They're able to do something. It's not just talk and shallow talk alone. People will not trust you because you talk. People will trust you because they see you in action. I'll tell you a funny incident. I used to come weekends and work in Abu Dhabi. The campus is small. It was, the city is small. You could go there, and this is all pre-COVID. You didn't have any restrictions. I would go weekend and catch up with some work. I was the assistant dean. I had enough. And Friday and Saturday were off in Abu Dhabi, and Friday is a working day in New York. So my headquarters is in New York, and I'm in a place where Friday is a holiday. Sometimes I came in Friday because I had to talk to my boss in New York, because Friday was working for him. But I was happy doing that extra bit of work. So there was a colleague of mine who goes about to tell another colleague, saying, Ghantasala deserves every penny that he's getting paid. This guy works. He deserves every penny that he's getting paid. I was getting extra paid because I was the assistant dean. But nobody was complaining, oh, this guy gets paid for nothing. Nobody was saying that. And there was, on the contrary, somebody was saying, this guy deserves every penny that he's getting paid because he works for every penny that he gets paid. Ability, benevolence, integrity. And that's how you earn the trust and respect of your fellow colleagues. They're equally capable. They're better qualified. Some of my colleagues were much more experienced. So I never thought I'm bossing over them. I did not think, oh, I know something and I have this power of being an assistant. They never, ever. I was not arrogant. I just was a humble person. And that's what, Daniel, when he was saying, they cannot be arrogant, I wish he would say they should be more humble. They bring humility and they don't say it. They show it. And that's how you earn the respect and trust of your team members. I think leaders are as successful as the team. If you have a team that doesn't trust you, you're not going to be a leader. You're never going to be a successful leader. You're not going to be an effective leader. So I think how good you are as a leader is so much dependent on how much your team trusts you, how much the team is willing to, work for a big cause, for a vision. So if you have no team, you have no followers, you're not a leader anymore. So you care for your team because that's what makes a leader. And that so much depends on the trust that you get from your team members. So that's trust there. And because of trust, you and your team members are willing to take that risk. You will do anything because of trust. You will share information without any inhibitions. And group effectiveness, group efficacy is very high. And you're bringing that effect of synergy, and productivity of the team is so good because we one large professional group of friends or family, if I have this sense of belongingness, we're not just colleagues, we are not just co-workers, we are not just a boss and a subordinate, but we are a team. We are like a family. When you leave the organization, people should say, oh, I miss this leader because he made us feel like a family. It's not that he was smart, he was intelligent, he had a great vision, he had all the technical knowledge, he had all the conceptual knowledge, he was a great manager. No, we miss being part of that team. There's something about him that he or she is bringing to the table that makes us feel like coming to the workplace, that we enjoy being part of that. It's not about money anymore. It's not about the incentives and rewards anymore. We are appreciative that we get that, but just the joy of working. It's not a pain to go to the workplace. It's a pleasure. That's how I felt about my work. I've thought I've had a long, extended holiday that I get paid for. For me, teaching job is such a beautiful job. I mean, I think every job is like that, as long as you have the passion for it. So please, guys, understand leadership is about personal leadership, how you can lead yourself. That makes you authentic, that makes you charismatic, that makes you ethical, that makes you get the trust, that makes you positive, as you see on the slide. Challenges to understanding leadership. I don't know if Trin is still there. She said maybe leadership is not required. If everyone takes up responsibilities of a leader, we are mature individuals, we are responsible. Everybody in the team, we don't need X or we don't need Gantasala or Prabhakar to be a leader. No need. We're all good. We can share information. We can be part of that vision. We trust each other. We're willing to work in synergistic ways. We can strategize. We bring complementary skills to the table. We don't need XYZ as a designated leader. So attribution theory of leadership says leadership is merely an attribution. You call somebody or you make somebody a leader, whereas maybe you don't need that somebody. You're all good to go as a team. We are all good to go as a community. It's not that XYZ individuals will make a difference. I'm arguing on the other side, like Trin did. I'm happy Trin brought that to the table. But if you look at it in realistic ways, I think we all look up to somebody at different times of our life. We look up to our parents, we look up to our boss, we look up to our teacher. And so it's just natural that we want to have a role model. It's much easier for us to learn. I'm not saying we're dependent on them, but it's easier for us to learn. We don't have to learn everything from scratch. Here is somebody who's doing it, who's demonstrating it. So let me look and observe and motor reproduction. I can retain easily what we are doing. I can shadow this particular person and learn quickly. I can grow as an individual and as a professional. It's because I have somebody to look up to. So it's up to you to decide, is it just a mere attribution that we're making somebody that much more important and call them as a leader? Or do you think that leadership is really something that the world requires and more such good leaders at different levels in the society are required? It's completely up to you to decide what is the best way, but that's a challenge. And Trin brings a very important, this is exactly what Trin said. I don't know if she's still listening out there, but that's what she said.
Yeah, Professor, I'm here.
Okay. So, and then there's one more challenge to our understanding of leadership. Online leadership needs more research. How can you be a leader if you're online? I think it's so much difficult, right? Suppose I'm doing an interview for a job. If they saw me in person and they see how authentic I am, and they see the personality and then the presence that I bring, perhaps I have a better chance of creating a positive impression and then securing a job. But if I'm doing it online, can I create the same impact? I'm not very 100% sure. Maybe I do, but it could be better when I do it in person. And the same applies to leadership. And if you're working from remote locations and different locations, because organizations work in different locations and different time zones, how do you create the same impact when you're not able to travel in person? So online leaders have to think carefully about what actions they want their digital messages to initiate. So when you write emails, when you talk, or when you make a presentation, you got to be that much more careful that you're not misunderstood, that you do not, reduce the kind of impact that you would otherwise create if you were there in person. You would want to do things that amplify that effect rather than diminish that effect. You have to be very careful what you write, what you say, what you present, because online literally diminishes the possibility of creating a strong positive impact and influence of you being a leader. Identification-based trust is difficult to achieve without face-to-face interaction. At least I'm happy, some of you I have seen in person. I'm so glad, like suppose Trin is there. We actually met, we talked, and we had those interactions. And that doesn't stand true for everybody. But if I'm able to create that impact, even while teaching via Zoom, I think that's great. If I can win over your trust without having to see you, you must be a positive leader. You must be a very charismatic leader. I just spoke about those 6 or 7 or 10, 15, students that I speak from India, whom I've never met, but they're willing to talk and share their, a bunch of problems. They're willing to discuss everything that bothers them right away. They're telling me what things actually pull them down and share their own innermost feelings and emotions. I'm so happy just over a phone call. I prefer phone calls rather than chatting. I'm that old-fashioned person. How much can you chat? How much can you actually share? So when somebody is sharing, I say, can we actually talk, even if it's for 5 minutes, even if it's for 3 minutes? Can we speak to each other so that I listen to your pain? I can feel your pain. I can understand your emotion. And if you have something to share and vent out, you can ventilate it easily. So I'm a big fan of picking the phone and calling. Please understand this, guys. When you become leaders, when you take up important jobs in organizations, sometimes it might not really work just writing long emails, giving a huge description. Give that personal touch. I know people are busy, but if they have that 3 minutes, that 5 minutes, I would prefer, you take an appointment, make a phone call, and so much more can be accomplished. That much more can be, time can be saved, because you don't go back and forth and explain and get nothing done, rather than 3 minutes of phone call, that personal touch, building relationship, creating positive influence, just that voice call. If you meet, there's nothing like that. So writing skills are likely to become an extension of interpersonal skills. I'm a big believer of it. When I write emails, there's that personal touch. Even in an official email, even when I'm talking only transacting business, there's this personal touch. Being nice, being polite, being kind, being warm, you don't lose anything. You're not becoming less powerful. You're not just compromising your status or position. You're not giving up on anything. The positivity, the vibes, every word that you use, I don't have to be a native English speaker to come across and explain things in a nice way. I've learned with your limited vocabulary, the choice of words and how you actually put them together, that has a strong impact. So I've learned to use that limited vocabulary of mine to great effect, whether I'm writing an email or whether I'm talking in class. I will never, ever use a disempowering word. I will always focus on things that are empowering, that are positive. Why do we have, life is so short. Why do we focus so much on negativity? Why do I have to say what I cannot do and how difficult this is and how impossible it has become? No. How can we get out of this situation? How can we do better? How can we learn from this? What is that I can help you with? And what are the things that you already are very good at? I just have to remind you of the positives. And if at all I can contribute anything positive, I should. So to be honest, like the way you talk, the way you write, the way you articulate, all these things are an extension of your interpersonal skills. Just because you're from remote locations, you're not able to meet because of the pandemic or other reasons, it doesn't stop you from trying to be, good at your interpersonal skills, which includes now your writing skills, your emailing skills, your talking skills over technology. Anybody who wants to add to what I just described? Online leadership, you don't listen to that frequently, but I think it has a huge bear. The world is better off because of technology. If we do not know how to leverage technology to make a difference, not just make money, which all companies do, but if we do not know how to leverage technologies to make a difference in other people's life and to touch other people's lives, we've lost a chance. You should do that. Whether it's family, friends, or other students elsewhere, you can create a huge impact. I've had the good fortune of taking some 2 or 3 lectures for students in India, I feel so blessed. I saw some 60 students talk to me, ask me questions. They said the lecture is for only 60 minutes, because who will listen to 60 minutes? I mean, attention span of students is only for 20 minutes. And after that, they're listening to music, they've shut down their videos, they may be, relaxing, they're not even in front of their device, their equipment, their laptops. So it was for 60 minutes. It went on for 2 hours. Just the fact that you connect, even when you're not in person, is such a fulfilling thing. For me to give back even a fraction to the country that gave me so much, to the community that supported me so much, is a big blessing. So I think online leadership is something that we are going to listen more, and we need to use it. Any other person who wants to add your experiences, share something on this, you can please feel free to do that. Nothing? I'm sorry, guys, I talk a lot, and I keep asking questions because I want to listen from you, which I would have, I think, had better opportunities if we are meeting in person, but that's okay. I mean, we're not going to give that as an excuse. Whenever you want to chat or tell me something, tell me, Professor, this is another way you could think. These are other things that I've learned. I'll be happy to learn from you. So there are other challenges, selecting leaders. How do we identify good leaders? You got to understand the position, personality tests, situation-specific experience. If you want to find out how a human being thinks, or you're hiring a good leader, you can describe a situation. What would you do in such a situation? I think that will talk to decision-making abilities, to analyze, abilities to be ethical, have processes, ensure equity and being fair. It brings a lot of things to the table because you're describing a situation. So I've seen that being used at executive level recruitment, because all executive level recruitment requires some degree of leadership in everyday activities. So they, instead of saying, okay, we saw your resume, it has everything that we're looking for. It's not what your vision is and have a great presentation. We want to see how you would deal with this kind of situation if it happened. So how would you think? Do you have a clear mind? Do you think from different perspectives, not just from the compliance issues, not from the legal issues alone, but from a vision, from different stakeholders' perspectives? How can you put those dots together and make sure that you have appreciation, approval of everybody who's involved in ways that do not deter anybody's progress? I think that demonstrates you being larger than the problem itself, you being larger than XYZ outcome, that you think way much bigger. That will show how your leadership can come forth in a given scenario. So when you're hiring leaders, it's just not about your credentials, your resume, your ability to raise funds, or your ability to, deliver on key performance indicators and all the great things that you've done. It's about how you handle a specific, sensitive situation in ways that harmonize things in the organization and just doesn't disturb anybody or doesn't put somebody in a disadvantageous position. So leadership recruitment is slightly different from just the technical interviews, where you're more concerned about technical skills, your credentials, your certifications. Those are all important, I agree. But there's something beyond that. We want to hire somebody who can create that positive impact in the organization, who will not, destroy the harmony and cohesiveness of the workplace itself. So, and then training leaders, can you train them? I don't know if you can. Perhaps there's no better training than your experience of working in those situations. If I was never made the assistant dean, probably I would never have discovered the leader in me. I was so hesitant to take that job because nobody else wanted to. I have 8 colleagues, full-time faculty, 3 adjunct faculty, and of course some staff. And nobody wanted the job of the assistant dean. I'm like, what? If nobody wants it, why should I want it? That's the kind of reaction I had. It must be a tough job. And it's a job nobody likes. They don't envy, that position. So I'm like, I told my boss, I need 1 week to think about whether I'll accept the job. He said, 1 week? I said, yes, 1 week. I want to think about it. And then he said, okay, go ahead. And you know, the best thing that I ever did, if I ask my colleagues, they'll say, don't take it, because they themselves did not want the job. So the best thing that I did in my life was ask two set of people, actually one set of people and another individual. I went to my undergrad bachelor students. I didn't go to the MBA students. They're all mature people with like 40 years of age and plenty of experience. I didn't go there. I went to my undergrad students, pretty much like your age group. And I said, here is a friend of mine who loves teaching and suddenly has been given this position of assistant dean, which he is not familiar. He's not comfortable. He doesn't think he has this ability. What do you think? Should he take it, or should he just remain a teacher and be happy with what he's doing? He's good at teaching and he's happy being a teacher. Should he consider this administrative position of being an assistant? And what do you think? You know, my students, they figured out it's no friend of mine. They figured out it's about me. They said, sir, take it. And I'm like, are you sure? It's like, no, sir, you will do a great job. Take it. You're a good human being. You'll do it. Don't worry. And I'm like, oh, this is something that I wasn't expecting. They figured out the story. I tried to, tell a fictitious example, but they figured this out, smart people. And they said, you can do it. Young minds are willing to take that risk. They're very honest. They're sincere. So I really respected my, students at the undergraduate level for the kind of trust that they had in me. If my students trust me, I think 75, 80% of the problem is solved. If they don't like me, they'll say, no, you don't want to be the assistant dean. Maybe they have reservations. They have doubts about whether I'll do a decent job. But they like me. They know that I can do a good job. For me, that was such a important input that I think that I did the best thing going to them. They're like you, same age group. And then I went back to my wife and asked, should I take this job? What do you think? I still have some doubt. This is what the student said, but I still have doubts. So I asked my wife, and she said, when is the next time that you will be given the assistant dean job for a business school of an American university? And I'm like, never, ever, maybe. I might never get this chance. I didn't have an answer. I said, maybe never. And she said, then you have to take it. These chances come once in a lifetime. Take it. And so I had positive from my students, positive from my life partner. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll be honest. I'll try my best. I might fail, but I'll try to succeed. I'll try to do a decent job. Even if I did a decent job, not an extraordinary job, I can forgive myself. At least I tried. I didn't run away from that responsibility. Guys, when you are given that opportunity, instead of doubting yourself, talk to those people who will increase your confidence. Like I talked to my bachelor students, like I went back and talked to my wife. I just shared the most personal example that leadership is something that you need to teach yourself. Nobody can train you, I believe. And then, of course, my boss is a great mentor. He gave me the freedom, he gave me advice, he counseled me, he continues to do so. I'm super grateful to him. Without his belief in me, without his trust in me, I would have never found that I could do something, that I'm capable of something. No, I would never do that. I would be a good teacher, and that's it. It's not I would regret being a good teacher, but now I know I'm better than a good teacher. I can do a little bit more. And why not? If I can do a little bit more, I'm happy doing it. So I think training for being a leader, not that easy, not really. And then see, mentoring is there, building trust, situation analysis. So training through modeling exercise. And he was a role model for me to learn from easily. I'm not like him. I'm not exactly like him. I'm different, of course, but I have many things that I've learned from him. And then events, I did the accreditation, became more confident that leadership is not about me, it's about the team. I don't have to worry so much. When the team loves you, they trust you, they're capable, that we think we can do something big, there's nothing to worry about. I'm as good as the team. So that's something that you should grab. When you get an opportunity, don't shy away from those responsibilities. So anybody else who wants to say something? I think we have reached the end of this chapter. So if you have something to contribute, I'll truly appreciate it.
What type of leader do you think you were when you took the assistant dean's position?
Yeah, I think I've actually mentioned that. I've always thought the word assistant fascinated me. I thought I should assist everything that goes on in the organization, in the university. And I just took everybody's problem as my problem, and not necessarily I would succeed in resolving that issue, but I would give it my best. So when you did that consistently, knowing what your responsibilities are, what your key outcomes should be, and the accreditation and the compliance and all these issues were important, but still not sacrificing student preferences, not compromising on my faculty's development, their opportunities, their growth. I think I was just that, being authentic, trying to be a servant of all. That's what I tried, and I was as ethical as it could get. I'm not saying I was perfectly ethical, because ethics is something that can be relative. Not, there are universal principles of ethics. There are some relative principles of ethics. So I cannot say I was the perfect leader. That will be a shame if I said that. But I tried my best, even for those individuals who tried to harm me, who tried going behind me and trying to damage my reputation. I did not damage theirs. I did not complain. I did not do anything that would deter their progress. I did everything in support of them, even when I knew that some individuals, took the extra pain and effort to damage my reputation. I wouldn't do anything terrible to them. So there was nothing personal about it. It's about supporting individuals, and I did that really well. And then I had the respect of my colleagues, because they said, "How can you be like this? Even when somebody is trying to hurt you big time, how can you be like that?" It made me happy. It made me feel more blessed. So implications, vision, productivity, teamwork, achieving what that kind of adaptation that the organization can have for changes, all that is driven by leadership. So implications are plenty. So you want to hire people who are ethical. We spoke about it. If you see what Arbor said, we don't have great leaders. I think ethical issues are a big thing. So you can train yourself to be as ethical as you should be. And we tried to follow those things as much as we could. So, and trust, we talked about it. I mean, if you have trust, even businesses cannot operate without trust. I built my home in India. I wasn't there when my home was being built. I actually signed off blank checks to the person who was actually building my home. And somebody who saw me signing blank checks was like, "What are you doing? Have you lost it? You sign blank checks?" I told him he's a joint account holder. He can draw money as I can draw money from my bank account. So I never even thought second time when I was signing blank checks every holiday, because I can't go there every time, draw money and watch over. My home costed a lot of money. Today it'll be like anywhere between 750 to 800K, I believe. And that's a lot of money in India. I'm talking about US dollars. And then you translate that into Indian context, it's a lot of money. And I signed off blank checks. And just to let you know personally, I don't have a penny of loan. When I built my home, not a penny of loan. Even today, I don't have a penny of loan. So when I was telling somebody, I teach business, but I'm very bad at taking loans, bank loans and stuff. So I don't know how to leverage that debt equity ratio. I'm using all hard cash to do things. There was a bank employee here from India. He just was on on-site assignment in Manhattan. He worked like 3.5 years here. He just left last year because his assignment was done. He told me, "Don't feel ashamed that you didn't take a loan." He said, "That's perfect financial management." He told me, "You have peace of mind." Just to let you know how clear me and my wife think, we say peace of mind first. It's not business. It's not about loans. It's not about luxury. It's not about thinking beyond our means, but knowing very well what we need to do as parents, what we need to do as human beings, as individuals, manage our resources really well, and then lead a life that is based on satisfaction, being based on contentment, I think that comes easy because we save plenty, because I'm from the Eastern cultures. We do not spend more than what we can earn. We save pretty much as we can. And so that these things actually really help. If you bring in culture to leadership, I think it adds another dimension to leadership itself, right? Yeah. So these implications are plenty. I spoke about all that, so I'm not going to repeat myself here. So we're done with the class itself. If you have questions, I'll be happy to take